The whole debate of seasonal versus evergreen has existed for as long as I can remember. Seasonal products are items that are geared toward a particular time of the year when an occasion or holiday occurs, versus evergreen products are those that are more likely to sell year round. In my shops, the trick to finding success with seasonal designs is making sure that they're connected to a niche or customer identity, meaning they're not just a generic design that could be for anyone. For example, your odds of hitting it big with a Merry Christmas or basic 4th of July shirt with a clip art design? Probably slim to none. However, relate your design to a niche you've already established or where you can make a clear connection. That has the power to go much further. So for today's video, let's create a design and a product together to walk through exactly how to do that. In case we haven't met yet, my name is Mandy. I've started and stopped multiple entrepreneurial adventures in the span of more than a decade and learned a lot along the way. Now, as the owner of multiple six-figure businesses and a slight obsession with freedom from fulfillment using Etsy print on demand, my goal is to provide you with strategies to simplify the journey so that you can stop the overwhelm, start making progress, and thrive with your print on demand business. Now, Father's Day happens to be coming up in a little over a month. Now again, occasions like this are not something that you're simply going to make a best father design and call it a day. As a new shop in particular, you'll likely land on page 500 with that strategy. So this is where you connect it to a specific identity, as in, think about a dad that you know. What's their profession? Are they an engineer, an accountant? What do they like? Camping, fishing, golf, time in the garage, pickleball? Perhaps they adore their pets. Are they a dog dad? Maybe a cat dad? As humans, we all have more than just one identity. We all have lots of things that we can potentially relate to. And finding and understanding those are what helps you think about the ideal customer that you're actually creating for. Now also think who it might be from. It could be from a wife, partner, kids, their pets. An easy place to start this, you can go right to the search bar in Etsy, and I'll even start typing in something like Father's Day gift from. And Etsy will provide me with suggested keywords based on things that customers are actually searching for on the platform. I happen to have a dog shop that I use for teaching on this channel, so we're going to design something together that would be a gift for Father's Day from the dog. The good news is we can actually use some of the other keywords that it suggested in the title and tags potentially as well. Instead of my usual apparel today, I'm actually going to be designing in another top product from Printify catalog, mugs. These are bestsellers for many, many people in a variety of different styles and can also carry a decent profit as well. While apparel is my primary product in most of my shops, I do also sell mugs, and so my personal favorite is actually from Spoke Custom Products. So they have a 15 ounce and an 11 ounce, and so when I select this, I'm going to go to Start Designing. And then what I want first, before I get into the actual designing, is I'm going to download the design template. And what this will do is it will give me the exact layout of this, including these little lines here, which will help guide me to know where the center is on both sides, because I want to have a design that's on both sides. You can design these individually, and I do that all the time. But for today, I actually want to show you how to specifically use these templates so you can design both sides of the mug all at once, or you could even have a full design as part of this as well. The other piece that I'm going to note here before we exit and go into Kittl is I'm going to note the print area size, and this is 2790 by 1219. And this will then allow me to get the right size template on the design when I'm creating it over in Kittl. So 2790 by 1219 is what we're looking for. As I said, I like to use Kittl for a lot of my designs. I have templates that are ready to go, so you can make very simple changes to them. You can make them your own. You can add or change different elements to create something new from something that's already been started for you. So for me, it makes the design process a lot faster from someone who's not natively a graphic designer. So I'm going to start a new project, and then it's going to ask me what I want my artboard size to be. You can start with a standard preset. They actually have print on demand presets based on a variety of different providers, including Printify. They do have a mug template here, but it's not quite the right size that we're looking for. So I'm going to create a custom one using the dimensions that I got from Printify. So I'm going to change the DPI to 300, that's dots per inch, and that's ultimately going to help us control our resolution. So 300, and then I'm going to do 2790 as the width, and then I'm going to do 1219 as the height, and then we'll go to create. And now we have our artboard that we can start working in. And so when I slide that over, what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload now that template that we originally grabbed from Printify so that we have our guidelines to work with. As I had that in here, you can now see that I've got it as one of my layers. And so I'm going to grab it and I'm just going to fill up my artboard with that template. So now I can see exactly what it looks like and where all of my placements are. I want to be able to see what I'm doing when I'm designing. So I'm just going to turn down this opacity just so I can barely see where those lines are. And I can see that just fine, so that will work. Next, we want to think about the design that we actually want to create. You certainly could come into the elements and start looking for some things that are in there that you can pick from. They have tons and tons and tons of different themes. To start with this design though, I'm actually going to go the humor route. That tends to work really, really well, especially in this particular niche when we're thinking about dogs and dads and gift for Father's Day, especially if we're going to create something that's intended to be a gift from a dog. I think humor makes a lot of sense. And humor also plays really well with simple text-based designs. We don't need to go crazy with these. Remember, simple does sell really, really well. You just need to be able to connect it with that ideal buyer. That is the key. It doesn't have to be an elaborate design. One of my favorite places to go for funny phrases and humor, especially when you're connecting it to a specific niche, is ChatGPT. And so, for example, one prompt that I might use here is give me 30 funny dog dad phrases that are written as though they are a short appreciation style message from the dog. And so you can see it gave me a long list of really good options. And so one of the other ways that I like to use it is I actually created what I like to call a niche creator. And this was a custom GPT that I built within ChatGPT, their plus version. And so with this niche creator, I simply plug in who I'm trying to design for, what my niche is, in this case, dog dad. And then it's going to ask me what type of tone I want with it, and do I want to cross niche it with something else, such as outdoor activities, coffee, technology, could also be wine, whatever it might be. And this is for any niche that you want to connect to. And so for this one, I said make it funny and combine it with coffee. Seems appropriate since I'm making a coffee mug in this particular case. And so then it's going to give me, based on how I created it, 10 different design concepts. It's going to give me some potential design phrases. So similar to what we saw in this one, which is the free version of ChatGPT. And then it's also going to give me some AI image generator prompts, meaning you can copy and paste these into an image generator and it will give you a variation of an image. You can also then edit these. So maybe instead of coffee, I want to have the interest be hot rods instead of coffee. And so you can also change that within here as well. If you want to grab either of these, whether it's my prompts that I like to use for creating designs that resonate with a particular niche or customer identity, or if you happen to have the upgraded version of ChatGPT and want to access the link for my custom GPT, which is completely free in itself, I've linked those for you in the description. For this one to get started with, I'm going to grab one from this initial prompt because I thought these were some really good designs that could be really funny for the demographic that we're going for. And I'm actually going to use this first one, which I think really will resonate with the dog dads of the world. And that is, thanks for picking up my poop with such dignity, Dad. You're the best. So we're going to use that one and we're going to have some fun with it. So now that we're back in Kittl, we're going to start with our design. And for text, I just need to keep it simple. So I'm just going to press the letter T on my keyboard, and that will give us a baseline headline font to start with. And so I've copied that phrase from ChatGPT, and if I paste it in here, now I can start editing. And so again, we're keeping this as a simple text-based design. I'm going to eyeball and center right over where one side of the center of the mug will be. Again, I want this design to be on both sides of the mug so that no matter how someone picks it up and holds it, the design is visible. And so I'm going to start with one side at a time, and I want this to be left justified, I think, to start with, and I'm going to grab a different font. The other nice thing about Kittl is they do have some great options for different fonts. Sometimes you'll see these in other places, but many of them I've only ever seen here in Kittl, so it does add a little bit of uniqueness. You can search by different types, so serif typically has these little extra notches on the font. Sans serif are the ones like this where they are smooth on all sides, and then of course script has more of a handwritten style. With a longer message like this, and for something that's funny, script is not going to make sense here. So I'm going to go with either serif or a sans serif font. I'm going to look through some of these. I want to make sure I've got a font that is going to be legible and not too tiny, because mugs are created, the image is created with sublimation, which when it's printed on a ceramic surface can have a little bit of ghosting around the edges, which means it just gets a little blurry sometimes around the very edge of the design. And that's fairly normal for the most part, but in doing so, I want to have a clear design and a clear font that's going to make that less noticeable and not going to create, like, this would be way too close together. That would not come out well in a sublimation setting. It's going to be really, really tiny, and it's going to be squished together, and you have the risk of some of these kind of running together in that final process. And so as we scroll, I wanted to keep these as a sans serif, and so you can see some of these are going to be more bold. I tend to be one that likes that adventure is one that I've used a lot. They also have one that's a bit more of a bold one. Let's start with that. And then I'm going to add essentially something at the bottom that indicates it's from the dog. And we could go one of two ways, and maybe I'll try both and see which one makes the most sense. So I'm going to create another text box. And remember, we wanted it to be as though it's from the dog. We could just keep it at the dog, could be one option. And in doing so, this one I would make more of a bold script, perhaps, as though they are signing it, kind of like a little message from the dog. Again, I don't want to go super, super fine. Like, that's not going to be readable on the final product. Same thing, I mean, I wouldn't put this on a t-shirt either. There are certain things, like these are really pale, thin fonts that just aren't going to work very well in this type of printing method. And so let's find one that will work well. I tend to like this adventure is a good one. So let's try that for now and see how that works. I've got a little tick in here, but I actually, instead of that, I might do something different with an element, perhaps a paw or a heart. Let's see if they have any heart paws. So I'm over here in elements, simply searching. So regular paws, something like that could work. I'm just kind of centering that around the text to see how that looks. And that actually works quite well, actually. So if I wanted to grab all of these and just expand, I'm going to hold down my shift key to select all of these. I could do Control G if I wanted to group them. So that way they all move together. I'm just going to expand that so that on the final product, it comes out nice and large. These green lines are going to be your safe area, and that is why having a template like this is really, really helpful. And that means you don't want your design to go beyond that dotted green line, because anything outside of that, if they don't center it just right, or depending on how it's aligned when it's actually printed, there's the risk of it getting cut off. So if I had it up here, there's a risk, not a guarantee, but a risk that part of that top line would get cut off from the design, and then you'd have a problem. So I'm going to center this here and make sure that with this now centered on one side of the cup, that looks about right. And so that looks good. And so now I'm simply going to do a copy paste, and I'm going to move and do the same thing over here. I'm going to keep it centered along that line here, and then I'm going to center it again so that on the other side of the mug, I've got it in both places. So that's one possible design for us. Now, if I wanted to perhaps do some A/B testing, maybe I have one listing with the dog, maybe I do another listing where it's with the name of the dog. So maybe it has a personalization option. The beauty of Kittl is you can now use this infinite canvas to create multiple artboards. And so I simply just grabbed the name of this original artboard, did a copy paste, and it's now going to make me another version where it's completely separate, and I can go about changing it or making something entirely different. And so with this now, I might change this. I'm going to do Control G again to ungroup these, and maybe I will change this to just a template name. So let's say the dog's name is Charlie, and that's the part that could be customized. And so for this one minor adjustment, I'm not going to recopy the whole thing. I'm just going to change it over here, and then I'll simply eyeball where it is. I can see it's on the same level as the other side, so that looks about right. So now we have two potential designs for this batch. Now let's say we wanted to keep working in this same batch so that we can have multiple products and listings going up at once to see which ones do the best, all within the same realm and same niche and similar target customer. We can keep going. So let's say with this third design, we want to do something a little more interesting. And so we come over to text. There are actually some different pairings that we can choose from. They're already kind of nice and formatted and put together for us. So there are also different gradients if we wanted to. I tend to be a fan of these vintage sets just because they've got some really fun pairings that work well together. So as we scroll through, find something that looks interesting. So I've grabbed this Sanborn copy template and just dropped it in here. And I don't need this grouped at the moment, and so I'm going to ungroup it so I can edit it. I'm going to grab another phrase from the GPT, and this one I'm going to do a variation on this, not exactly. So when I'm working with ChatGPT, I don't always use every single response that I get from it. Some of them make sense, some of them don't, and sometimes I will pick and choose what I use or mix and match. So in this case, I like the concept of legendary belly rubs, and so let's start with that. Legendary, expand that out a little bit. And depending on your font, sometimes if you do a capital, like if I capitalize this, I love this particular font. And so sometimes you'll get more of the script, and I want it all lowercase so that I can have a different variation on the font there. And that looks good. So I might need to expand this back out, and we can justify that later. So I'm going to get rid of some of this. We'll see if I keep parts of it. Don't need the top parts. Don't need that. Don't need that. going to come up and center this roughly again on that center part of the line so we know exactly where the center of one side of the mug is. And this one, as we move, you can see those little blue lines appear. That's going to tell us that we've centered it right below the word above. So that works. I'm going to use this smaller version of it. I'm going to put in the rest of it. So we were using this one, and I'm going to grab that. Thanks for always hitting the right spots. Bring that back over here and paste that in. That works pretty well. I like the idea of having the dog's name in there. I think personalization, particularly in some of these niches, when you're talking about pet parents, human parents, anything like that, are going to work really well for personalization. So I'm going to leave that in there for now and see how that looks. Zoom out just a little bit, and that works well. So I'm going to look at this, make sure it looks about center again for that line. That works well. If we wanted to have a different color in here, we certainly could. Sometimes for these simple humor designs, simple does best. And so we're going to just grab this, we're going to repeat it, we're going to move that over here. I also like this concept of legendary because if you've been on Etsy, you've probably seen those like dad legend, grandpa legend, kind of just bringing in some of those similar words that we've seen do well in the marketplace. So that looks about right. The last thing I want to do before I can use any of these, before I export them, I want to get rid of this bottom layer here because I don't want that to export out with anything. So I don't need it anymore, so I can simply delete those. And now I have 3 designs that are basically ready to go. The beauty of working in these batches with artboards like these is I can now export and save these all at once. So when I come up to download, if I wanted only 1 or 2, I could certainly pick and choose which ones I want. And so that is one option. I'm going to download all of them, so they will download as a zipped file, and I'm going to download them as a PNG. All of our width and height are set where we need them to be, and so is our DPI. I want to make sure I remove the background, and then I'm always going to optimize quality and then hit download. Now we are back over in Printify in the same template that we had pulled up before to start designing, and so I don't need this information anymore, so now I'm ready to upload my first design. And as you can see, as soon as it drops in without me having to change anything, adjust anything, this mug is ready to go. So if I go to preview, I can now see exactly what it's going to look like. So this is the side of it basically. And then if we look at both the right side, which is this one, and then the left side, which is this one, you can see that it's exactly where it's supposed to be, and it's nice and centered without me needing to change anything on this final side itself. And then I've wanted to see it with an actual mock-up behind it. I can look at that one, and again, that is basically perfect. And so if you need to adjust anything or change anything, you certainly could. I wouldn't go any bigger because then your resolution does start to drop a little bit. I try to maintain it right around that 300. But if, for example, you had it like too far off to the side in your final design, you could do a small little tweak here by shrinking it and then moving it over just a little bit if you wanted to kind of adjust the centering on that line. But generally speaking, as long as you were following that original template, you should be in pretty good shape once you actually upload it in here. And again, because I did it all in Kittl, I didn't need to touch anything once I actually got to the Printify side of things. So this is ready to be saved. And normally in Printify, typically I'm creating my title in here. I'm copying over my descriptions that I normally use on my mug listings. And so if it were ready to go and be published, I could then simply come over here to duplicate And now I can work with what I've already got. This is typically what I work with when I'm doing batches, so I can work through them very quickly. And so in this case, because I already started with what I had in the first place, I can simply remove this first design out of here, and I'm ready to upload my next one. Because it's the same design, this would be more of an A/B testing where I'm testing it with just a plain version of the dog versus this one, which would be then created to be personalized within Etsy. This would be a different listing that I would create to see which one performs the best, and I would use different titles here as well. I would start this particular listing with personalized or custom so that I can show up in a different set of search results on Etsy. But otherwise, as a product, again, this is ready to roll and would be ready to update here with a product description here in Printify and then published. Otherwise, if you're just saving it as a batch and you want to come back to it like I will here, you can simply save as draft and it will be there. And then I can do it one more time for my next one by coming in here, duplicating, editing, and now I can upload my third and final design, grab that, and then if I were to just do it that way, I could then just come over here and get rid of that first one, and now it's ready to go. And again, this is a slightly different design, so I want to double check and make sure that it looks the way I expect it to on both sides. You can see we've got a nice bold design here on both the left side and the right side. We can verify that it's exactly where we want it to be, or go back and make changes if we need to fix anything. But that looks good to me, so ready to save this product, and we'll save it as draft, and then it would be ready for Etsy after this. Now for titles and tags for these on Etsy, it's important to make sure you're leveraging your niche specific keywords and thinking about how your ideal customer would be searching for products that you're selling. I like to use a combination of who it's for, what the theme is, and an occasion for which it might be gifted. Remember, Etsy is all about gifting these days. So for example, Father's Day gift from dog, I would also incorporate dog dad gifts and even birthday gift for dad from dog. You could take these one step further in this particular example and even have a picture of a dog breed on one side with the dog's name customized and then leverage a specific dog breed in the title and tags. The beauty of a design like this is that it will work for more than just Father's Day. As I said, it could also work for a birthday gift for a dad, for example. Remember, the ultimate goal with your designs should be to create that connection with your ideal buyer. You may not be great at it at first, but the more you practice your designs and research your niches, the better you will get with time. Never stop learning and working towards improvement along the way. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you want to learn more about my strategies for thriving in your print-on-demand business, make sure you've got the notifications turned on for my channel so that you don't miss out on any of my content. And in the meantime, be sure to check out my free print-on-demand course in the description, as well as my time blocking series here on my channel for an even deeper dive on those critical steps for success. Thanks for watching. I'm so glad you're here, and I'll see you in the next one.